For years, the way things get from a factory to your front door was this perfectly tuned, almost boringly predictable dance. Well, that dance has turned into an absolute mosh pit. Today, we're jumping into the wild new world of global logistics. We're talking tariffs, we're talking secret ships. It's all creating this massive supply chain whiplash. And it all kicks off with a really strange puzzle.
So here's the thing that just doesn't add up. This past July, air cargo numbers suddenly shot up. Now you'd think, hey, that's great news, right? The economy's booming. But what if I told you that spike happened right before experts started forecasting a huge slump for the rest of the year? It makes zero sense, unless something or someone is messing with the system.
And this chart right here, this is basically the smoking gun. That 5% jump in July, that wasn't real growth. That was a panic button. Importers were in a mad dash to get this stuff into the country before new government policies kicked in. They pulled months of orders forward. And the result? A projected 20% nosedive in imports for the last part of the year. That, my friends, is the whiplash effect in all its glory.
So what exactly caused this citywide panic? Well, it all boils down to a massive shift in trade policy. And we're not talking about some minor adjustments here. These are huge, seismic changes that are literally redrawing the map of global trade.
Okay, check this out. On August 7th, 2025, a whole new wave of U.S. tariffs just went live. Boom. Suddenly, anything coming from India gets hit with a 25% tax. From Brazil, 40%. Even Canada got a 35% tariff. And then there's the big one, a proposed 100% tariff on semiconductor chips, which, just happens to be in everything. Basically, overnight, the cost of doing business skyrocketed, and companies had to scramble.
And it wasn't just the big-ticket items. There was this rule. It's called the de minimis exemption, and it was a huge deal, especially if you shop online. For years, it meant that any package valued under $800 could just fly into the U.S. No taxes, no duties. It was the quiet little engine behind that explosion in cross-border e-commerce. Well, as of August 29th, someone just turned that engine off.
And what does that look like in the real world? For just one company, DHL, shutting down that single rule could cost them up to $231 million in operating profit for the year. That's the kind of number that forces you to make big changes fast. DHL is already cutting its air freight flights from China. This isn't just a ripple effect. It's a full-on tidal wave.
But the policy whiplash is really only half the story. Because while governments are tightening the official rules, a whole other world is pushing back, in the shadows. They're playing this incredibly high-stakes game of cat and mouse out on the open ocean.
So let's talk about the shadow fleet. No, we're not talking about pirates with eye patches. This is a sophisticated and growing navy of tankers and cargo ships operating completely off the grid. They'll turn off their tracking signals, they'll use fake documents, they'll register their ships under fraudulent flags, all to move sanctioned stuff like oil for Russia and Iran completely under the radar.
But the regulators of the world are fighting back, and they're fighting back hard. Take Panama. They've got the second biggest ship registry on the planet, and they've declared a zero-tolerance policy. Back in March, they booted 107 of these sketchy vessels. By August, they were demanding mandatory tracking for oil transfers, and they flat-out blocked any ship older than 15 years from even signing up. They are seriously trying to clean house.
And this whole crackdown has created these two parallel universes of shipping. You've got the legit ships, they're insured, they're modern, everything's above board. And then you have the shadow fleet. Uninsured, old, risky ships sailing under fake flags. And the big problem here is that the shadow fleet isn't just a political issue. It's a massive environmental and safety risk for all of us. Okay, so you've got completely unpredictable government policies on one side, and you've got this clandestine war at sea on the other. How on earth is any company supposed to navigate this chaos? Well, they're adapting. And they're doing it by making two enormous pivots that are changing the very DNA of how things are made and moved.
Now, the most important thing to get here is that this isn't just a temporary storm that's going to pass. One analysis calls it a fundamental long-term shift. The old playbook of just chasing the cheapest possible price. It's been thrown out the window. The new game is all about survival, being resilient, and dodging risk. So, the first giant pivot is all about geography. For decades, the mantra was go where it's cheapest, which created these incredibly long and complicated supply chains.
Well, now companies are tearing up that old map. They are pulling production out of risky countries and moving it closer to home. We call it reshoring or nearshoring.
And if you think this is just some business school theory, think again. Apple's supply chain inside the US is now on track to make 19 billion semiconductor chips this year. That is not a coincidence. When you're facing a potential 100% tariff on chips from overseas, suddenly making them at home becomes a very, very good idea. This is reshoring happening in real time.
All right, so that's pivot number 1. Move your factories. Pivot number 2 is the technology pivot. See, if you can't predict what the world's going to do next, you need to build a system that can react to the chaos instantly. And to do that, companies are diving headfirst into artificial intelligence and automation, not as a nice-to-have, but as a core tool for survival. And just how big is this tech pivot? The market for just AI in logistics is already worth almost $21 billion. That's a huge number.
But what's really insane isn't just the size, it's the speed. That market has been growing at a rate of over 45% every single year since 2020. That's not just growth, that's an explosion. It shows you just how badly companies need a technological lifeline right now.
And you know who's noticing? Investors. A warehouse robotics company called Geek Plus just went public in July with a valuation of nearly $3 billion. That's a landmark deal. It's a huge vote of confidence from Wall Street that the future of warehouses is, well, robotic.
And this isn't science fiction, you know? The value is real and it's happening right now. AI is helping companies cut their forecasting mistakes by 30%. It's letting them hold 15% less safety stock, which saves a ton of money. It's automating decisions, optimizing truck routes on the fly. We're talking about saving hundreds of millions in costs. This is exactly why the tech pivot is happening so fast, because it actually works. So, when you piece it all together, the policy whiplash, the shadow fleets, this great pivot to new locations and new tech, what does it all mean for the future of how we get our stuff? It means the game has a completely new rulebook.
So here they are, the 3 new rules of global trade. Rule number 1, geopolitics is king. Where you build your stuff is now about tariffs and sanctions, not just how cheap the labor is. Rule number 2, volatility is the new normal. You have to expect these crazy swings and be nimble enough to survive them. And rule number 3, technology is survival. In a world this unpredictable, AI and automation aren't just cool gadgets. They are the basic operating system you need to stay in the game. So the entire global supply chain is getting this massive, maybe long overdue upgrade. It's becoming more local, definitely more resilient, and a whole lot smarter. But that leaves one final crucial question for all of us. Will this new, intelligent supply chain actually make the things we buy more reliable? Or is it just going to make them a whole lot more expensive?